Chef Wolfgang Ramsey, and today we shall be cooking chicken Manchurian. Alright, so the first step to cooking chicken Manchurian is to prep your other steps. I'll be going through which ones I did. So this is some ginger garlic paste that my mother made. Thanks, Mom. I'm stealing it. And you saute it on high heat in this steel pan because we're going to be using high heat for a while. You don't saute it for long, just like a few seconds. Alright. We're already burning, so good sign. Now, we go over here and take the bell peppers that we already cut and diced. They're supposed to be a tad bit larger than this, but oh well. In addition to some bell peppers, we take some of our green onions. Just a few. Add them in as well. Cook this on high heat for a while. Stir everything while everything around you burns to a crisp, just like your life. Put two more green onions. Two. Do this for 2 minutes, so even like two. My brother is making a face at me, which means he'll get punched later. Not in front of the camera, but it's 7:23. We're going to take the peppers off the heat. Now that we've dealt with that, let's add the main star of the show, our marinated chicken. So this chicken has been marinating for at least 30 minutes with just a touch of cornstarch, some vinegar, some soy sauce, some white pepper, and some salt. Perfect, you can replace the white pepper with just regular pepper if you don't have it. Okay, so from what we left off, the sauce is reduced quite a bit. I fired Azak for thinking that he could take a break. Unpaid child labor is the best, guys, really. And then rehired him because I didn't have anyone else and I didn't want to do it. So, you're welcome. This teaches character. You should be happy.
Money also teaches character.
Shut up. I don't have that. And it's definitely not enough for you. Okay, so the sauce has been reduced enough, and honestly, it looks positively delicious. And God knows I'm not feeding Azak any. Just kidding. For legal reasons, that's a joke. Now, we add the final touch. Some green scallions on top. Oh, that's literally horrendous. I know. Azak wants to mix it. Azak, what are you doing interfering with the food? That's the saddest mixing I've ever seen. Put your arm into it. Oh god. I could eat the sauce for days, but then I'd die. But might be worth it because the sauce is amazing. Now our mom is coming. Okay, so this is Anne. Thank you. This looks pretty great.
Chicken Manchurian was an explosive fusion that had its roots in both India and China. It was created by Nelson Wang, a third-generation Chinese chef born in Calcutta, India. Wang basically took fried chicken and combined it with a sauce made from Bengali spices, ginger, garlic, and green chilies, and soy sauce and cornstarch. This dish became an instant hit at the club which he was cooking at. And the thing with this dish is that it's such a beautiful intersection of two different cultures, especially in relationship with salt. You see how salt affected both China and India. In China, salt was seen as an invention of the mythical Huang Di, and wasn't directly added to food, but rather used in sauces and pastes. But beyond just flavoring food, it was so important to the fact that it was used to collect taxes and build revenue. Chinese were inventors with salt. They were the first to boil salt water to produce salt, ferment soybeans to produce soy sauce, and even use saltpeter to make gunpowder. Meanwhile, in India, salt became a symbol of freedom against oppression and tyranny. What happened was that the British had an immense salt monopoly and thought of India as their servant. They forced Indians to pay unreasonable prices for salt, despite the fact that Indians could create the salt easily by evaporating salt water using the sun. India fought against this oppression. Mahatma Gandhi, leading the Indian resistance, assisted in destroying this British salt monopoly via nonviolent protests, such as producing their own salt by evaporating salt water, as mentioned before, and marching against the British government. For the first time in history, Britain conceded to India over this point, and they were able to sit down and talk, not master and slave, but equals. When a British official asked if Gandhi would like some tea to seal the pact to end the British salt monopoly, Gandhi said that his tea would be water, lemon, and a pinch of salt.
Alright, so these are the ingredients that I use to make pidan solozo. I used a century egg, a cup of rice, water, some salt, and some pork. The centerpiece of the meal is the century egg. Century eggs traditionally are created by preserving an egg in a mixture of ash, salt, lye, and tea, and then wrapping it up in like a rice husk for several weeks to months. Right now, I'm chopping the pork. Generally speaking, when you chop something, you want to keep one finger forward, so as you move the knife back, it would hit your finger, and since the rest of your hand is behind that finger, you would avoid chopping your finger. Some recipes will call for marinating the pork, but I will just be leaving the pork as is. Alright, right now I'm just washing the rice. You just want to swirl it a few times and then drain the water and just repeat 2 to 3 times, and yeah. Generally speaking, Chinese cuisine is composed of 6 main key flavors. There's ma, as in ma la, which refers to a numbing, sort of spicy and numbing flavor. There's la, which is just spicy. There's tian, which is sweet. There's suang, which is sour. And there's ku, which is bitter. As well as xian, which is salt, which is the main focus of our group. Salt is generally viewed as a sort of balance between the other flavors. It accentuates the sweetness of a dish while also sort of toning down the sourness you experience in others. However, in Chinese cuisine, we don't use salt as much. We generally now use MSG, which, while not having any actual flavor, brings out the flavor in other foods, especially salt, which is why it's generally used as a salt substitute in Chinese cuisine now. While I might not have added any MSG into my dish, because I don't know where the MSG is, or if we have any, I did show during the cooking process that we had stuff like chicken bouillon powder and mushroom bouillon powder, which also contains MSG and is sometimes used by other Asian households instead of MSG. Here you can see my finished product. I didn't add any of the century egg inside as I was cooking lunch for my family and my little siblings dislike it, so I decided to add it at the end. Generally speaking, when you're cooking it, you would dice it up and then add it after you start cooking the rice the second time around. First time you cook the rice and then you add the meat, the ginger, salt, or you could add salt at the beginning, as well as the century egg. And then you just boil it again and just cook it that way.
Naturally.
And here we are about to make the appetizer for schmuck. Here are the ingredients: hard-boiled egg, onion, apple, wet bread, and salted herring. Let's begin. My dish is a Jewish dish called farshmak, and its main ingredient is salted herring. Salt in Europe was and still is a very big thing. Well, you see, in ancient Roman times, it was used as cash because that's where we get the word salary from salt, because that's what ancient Roman soldiers were paid in. And also, garum was a thing back then. Garum is basically fish sauce, and its main ingredient, apart from fish, was salt. And if you were a savory dish in ancient Roman times, chances were you had garum in you. And from what I heard, it had a very fishy taste. So, be warned if you find it on the internet. And then, when we moved to other parts of Europe, like the Celts, similar time here, they used salt to make some very now famous dishes, like salted ham and corned beef, both of which, well, at least the modern incarnations, are very good. And then, of course, when we move to even more modern times with the British Isles, the Brits and the French used it to make salt cod and corned beef. And those were basically the rations in the British Navy. Very fun fact. And of course, if we go back to Italy for a second, Venice used it to build an entire freaking empire based on trading salt that they mined near in Italy, in one of those islands for some luxuries like other spices, probably even silk. So that's a brief history of salt in Europe.
There's the t-shirt.
And now it's time for the taste test. Not bad. Very good.
This is a story of Chinese orange chicken and Chinese restaurants and the prevalence and rise in America. Chinese orange chicken is a takeout dish involving fried chicken pieces tossed with rice and sweet citrus sauce. Although it isn't an authentic Chinese dish, orange chicken is an Americanized Chinese dish inspired from a Cantonese dish in the Hunan province of China. Anything foreign has always been evaluated by Western taste. In America, regardless of how excellent a Chinese restaurant is, its cuisine has always been met as culturally unacceptable. Most Chinese restaurants will never get a 4-star review in New York Times because Western culture has deemed Chinese cuisine as almost unworthy to be taken seriously. America once viewed Chinese citizens as domestic and obedient servants, and their food and culture have no doubt been oppressed and villainized, as many have seen it as unclean, unsanitary, and inedible. As a result, many Chinese immigrants came to America with the pressure to assimilate and suppress their identity for less judgment in society. Orange chicken was a byproduct of such assimilation, adapted to American tastes. That's why it's so impressive that Chinese food has risen to such popular heights despite these cultural and social obstacles. Chinatown thus became a haven that protected and kept Chinese culture and its food thriving, as food became the main source of cultural preservation for these people. But still, Chinese food in America has still been met with racist attitudes. MSG, otherwise known as monosodium glutamate, is a food additive commonly found in Chinese food to enhance its flavors. Over the years, many have vilified its use, believing it to be harmful, but in reality, it's completely safe to eat and also found in foods such as tomatoes. For many restaurants, it's been a fight to combat these harmful stereotypes toward Asian American food, and it's one that many are still fighting towards today.